It is music which brings me almost to tears, if I have to be really open.
So I just wanted to introduce my viewers to this new project of ours, talk a bit about it, and maybe we could just start off by saying that this CD is called Iridescent Notation, and it came out just actually a couple of weeks ago, but it will be out on all the digital platforms, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, and all the rest, starting May 1st. And as of now, you can purchase a physical copy of the CD, and you can also purchase a download from the Kairos website, which I will provide a link to in this video. So it features 6 of my compositions, conducted by Luigi Gaggero with the UKHO ensemble, that's UKHO of Kyiv, Ukraine. But from now, Luigi, maybe you could just present the background of this project and what it is that we tried to do on this CD.
I'm very happy because this CD is indeed a very important moment for our collaboration, which started already some years ago. And when I discovered your music, we met in Strasbourg after one concert which I was conducting in the academy, the music academy. And I was really very impressed when I received your first scores. And from the very beginning, I was thinking I would love to perform your music and maybe one day to record it. And now we are. So I'm very happy about this CD. I'm really very attached, and this comes really sincerely, not because we are presenting the CD, but it's really the truth. I'm particularly in love with your music because I think that in our musical landscape, it is really very, very, very rare to find music which still has a connection to a higher dimension, which speaks about transcendence, which touches a higher dimension, which embraces us all. And this is something which I feel with very few composers today.
I think maybe one thing that we can both agree on is that the pieces are not particularly easy to play. So this was not; these are not pieces that you can sort of throw together in a couple of rehearsals.
The first thing which I told to Sasha and Eugene, with whom I have co-founded the ensemble, was I will do it with great pleasure and enthusiasm. But the only thing I ask is unlimited time to rehearse, because I don't want that we play only correct versions of the pieces. So we need time to build an interpretation. And I think that the better a musician is, the more time he needs, actually. And we live a little bit in the opposite evidence. No, so okay, since you are very good, then you can also rehearse 1 hour. Of course, a very good musician will be able to perform correctly much faster than a musician who is not so good. But actually, the real difference between a good musician and someone who is not so good is that the good musician is supposed to be able to go deeper in the music, and that's the real difference. And this going deeper takes time, which means if you are a good musician, you should spend much more time rehearse and study music. And unfortunately, most of the time, our society doesn't work like this. So this is a little bit the idea of the ensemble, and also how I try to work with your music. So, which means for me a lot of time, which means months of study for me, so that I can start imagine this music in my heart, not only my mind. And when the vision is clear, then I can start the rehearsals.
Well, for a composer, those are incredibly important things, because you always want to get beyond the point of just, as you said, a kind of correct performance of the piece, which is very often what happens, where a lot of the time you get a performance where the notes are basically in the right place and the rhythms are basically in the right place, but there's no real musical understanding and there's no depth to the interpretation. And I think that one of the things that you've achieved here, and that I'm very grateful for, is that you went far beyond that stage, and you've created a recording that really penetrates very deeply to the very essence, the very meaning of what it is that I'm trying to do.
Thank you.
And one of the ways that we've been able to do that, we're lucky in the sense that you have a teaching position in Strasbourg, where I live, so we were able to meet quite a few times over quite a long period. And you also performed some of the pieces several times before the recording, and everything was done in an atmosphere of security. We weren't sort of panicked, we weren't rushing, we weren't trying to get everything done in the shortest amount of time. This was really something that came about over the course of a few years, actually.
Yes, it was beautiful. Sorry, but exactly that. Through all our collaborations, we were always speaking about poetics, about music, about aesthetic and ethic values. So our discussion was almost never about, sorry, this note should be C or C sharp. Okay, of course, this sometimes too, but the main points were really about, I would say, deep things, and so it should be.
Well, one of the things that I always have trouble with myself is describing my own work. I'm not very good at it, and I prefer to ask other people to do that, because it's strange when you're working on a piece of music. At least for me, it feels very much like going into a trance or a dream, and you're connecting with something, but you're not necessarily consciously aware of directing the project in a certain way. So it's very hard for me to have an external vision of what it is that I'm doing. So I wonder if you could, in a few words, somehow try to describe the nature of the music on this CD. Like how would you present it to somebody who's never heard it before?
Of course, the best thing would be, it sounds obvious, but to listen, because there are no words which can take the place of the direct empathic experience of listening. For me, this music is deeply related to our memory, So this music brings in itself a lot of the musical tradition of the last centuries, and not only of the musical tradition, but of our identity, I would say, of our societies and our culture. It has this connection with tradition and the past and the memory in form, at least to me, of nostalgia. And it is this nostalgic connection to the memory, which is expressed in a very deeply moving, struggling, touching way. It is music which brings me almost to tears, if I have to be really open, because it's like searching for a legato, not only in musical sense, but a legato of our lives, in the same moment as the music states that this legato today is not possible anymore. And this longing for something beautiful, which is almost not possible anymore, which makes for me the charm of this music. in the booklet for our CD, I was there in a comparison without knowing if you would like it or not. So I was a little bit scared when I submitted you the text. So maybe I will lose a friend now. But I'm speaking, but apparently not. So, and I was speaking about Hopper. In his paintings, the moments very often are intimate moments. You have a woman or a couple in a hotel room or a bar in the evening with an empty street. So it's almost a romantic landscape or feeling, but all the characters are extremely isolated from each other. And this incredible ontological loneliness together with the emotion which is somewhere frozen deep inside these characters. And from this contrast, so this emotion and passion which is almost disappeared, but almost, and the actual loneliness of the characters, which to me at least makes Hopper so struggling and intense. And actually, I could use almost the same words for your music. Something which I also notice in your music is that very often you use fragments of a musical gesture, and this fragment is repeated. And to me, this repetition is not a repetition in the sense of Beckett, for example, or a repetition in the sense of fragmenting, for example, the reality or breaking the reality or something. This repetition is more like almost like a prayer, but at the same time, the more, and this is the tragedy in the music, expressed from the music, the more we repeat this, the more the meaning gets lost. So it's, for example, in the piano concerto, there are almost fragments of dancing rhythms. But these rhythms are repeated so often that they lose their flesh, so their body, and so it is like we would like to dance this music, but this dance is not possible anymore. So once again, it's a feeling of nostalgia which I deeply feel.
If you look at different European cultures and the sorts of art that they have tended to produce, like the difference between, for example, the Netherlanders in painting, the sorts yes. of paintings that you get from Vermeer, for example, or Van Eyck, where you have these interiors, usually featuring maybe one or maximum two people. Yes. And the paintings that you get in Southern Europe or Southeastern Europe, it's very, very different. There's a contrast between indoor cultures and outdoor cultures, absolutely. I would say, in yes. Europe. And it's, I feel connected to that in a certain sense because I'm from a northern country, a northern country with an enormous amount of space in it, and in which actually there's a very small population relative to the surface of the country. So I can't do any sort of psychoanalysis. I'm not going to try to do that. But I wonder sometimes if there isn't a connection between those things, because I'm not from an outdoors kind of culture, you know, and I do think that influences things. Speaking of cultures that are not necessarily outdoors cultures, we recorded this CD in Ukraine.
Yes.
And maybe we should say a few words about that, because a lot of my activities over the past 4 or 5 years have been in Western Europe, most of them actually. All of the CDs I've done have been recorded in Western Europe. This one was recorded in Kyiv. So let's say a few words about that. Why Ukraine? Why Kyiv?
But this is, of course, connected to the ensemble and to the reason why I have created this ensemble there. And the first time I played a concert in Ukraine, I was really shocked from the public, because this public is really there. So I was used actually to the West European public, which is very polite, very attentive. But at the same time, I don't know really how many persons you really reach until their soul. With the Ukrainian public, I had really the impression that most people there in Ukraine are there because they are expecting a deep experience, emotional experience from the concert or from art in general. And then I met the UKA agency, so the persons who created this agency, which at the beginning, before that the ensemble exists, is an agency which organizes concerts, inviting people, musicians from Ukraine or abroad. And they accepted the idea of creating an ensemble with Ukrainian musicians. And the incredible thing is that I found in the musicians the same spiritual attitude which I felt in the public, which means not a professional attitude, professional in the sense, okay, tell me what I have to do, I do it, but please leave me alone. So I don't want to be here with my deep identity, with my heart, with my emotions. I just give you a professional performance, as often is the case in our context, Western Europe context. And instead, they are hungry for spiritual information, for spiritual experiences. So their availability to be touched from a deep spiritual experience, this is something which I really rarely met outside Ukraine. So we never speak about how to do things as you would maybe do with Western ensemble, but we almost only speak about why we are doing things. And from the why, so that means from the emotional experience, we try to find the technical way to reach it. And this gives, in my opinion, interpretations which are particularly vibrant, particularly emotional. I think, of course, one might like them or not, of course, but a certain thing is that these interpretations sound really emotional and particularly sincere. So I really feel that each one of the musicians of the ensemble is there not only with his great, by the way, technical skills, but with all his soul. And this is something which really also moves me deeply. So we also in the recording sessions, not only for your CD, but after 10 hours of recording, I have many of these outstanding musicians who tell me, no, but could we record it again? Because we felt you were not completely happy. And still we had already 10 incredible good takes. So this attitude is something, or sometimes we finish the rehearsals at midnight, over 7 hours, and I'm very happy. And still I have half of the ensemble on stage, still working and playing and practicing, and I am the one who says, please go home, take a rest. It was fantastic, and no, they want to do it better and more, and this is, yes, I have no words.
Yeah, I mean, as a composer, I can only agree and say that it was an incredible experience working with all of them. We were very fortunate to have some incredible soloists on this project. So Dmitry Pashinsky, for example, who played the very, very difficult clarinet part in the cantata Iridescent Notation. It's a part for A flat piccolo clarinet, very, very difficult instrument to play. Normally it's extremely challenging. He just picked it up and played it with incredible fire and commitment and energy and brilliance. I was really impressed by that. Also, of course, we have to talk about Dina Pisarenko, who played the very demanding solo part in À propos du concert de la semaine dernière, but also the piano solo in Night Division, which is not simple. And I've never heard it played like that. We also have to mention Rachel Kobliakov, who played the difficult violin solos in the cantata. There's an entire movement for solo violin and chamber ensemble. And of course, Maren Schwier also, who sang the cantata absolutely brilliantly. These are just some of the musicians, but basically everybody on the CD at one point is a soloist. So every
Yes.
single member of the ensemble was intensely engaged, working very hard, and completely committed to the project. And I have to say that was a real pleasure.
Yes, I have to say it's always a paradise actually as a conductor when you have musicians who are so enthusiastic. Of course, it is also very demanding because they are constantly asking you as a conductor the best you can do, because this sincerity and this enthusiasm is also a big responsibility. So then you really need to have respect and make the best use of the time of the energy of such musicians.
This is just, I couldn't be happier with it. I want everybody to hear it. And once again, it's available as a paid download from Kairos. It's available as a physical CD that you can order. And it will also be available on May 1st as a stream via all the major streaming platforms, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, and so on. Thank you, Luigi.
Thank you.
If you like this channel, support it. Your help allows me to keep on making high-quality music education videos available to anyone around the world who wants to watch them at any time for free. Check out the rewards for varying levels of support at www.patreon.com/Samuel Andreyev. Thanks for watching.